MLBB Around the World is powered by Asus ROG. The ROG phone is the official gaming phone of MSC 2024. On the road to the biggest event in our esports history just yet, I bet you're wondering, what is MLBB like around the world? Today we're taking a detour. We're going to MPL Malaysia and talking to Gideon Q to hear all about their two representatives. One for the main card, one for the wild. Gideon, how are you, man? Let's talk about SRG and Homebois. What is the Malaysian playstyle like?
Look, I'm glad that you guys took the detour coming down here to Malaysia to learn a little bit about us, because we used to have 2 slots, and unfortunately, after bad performances, we lost one and we have to go through the wild card, which makes this year a little bit more exciting. Last year we had SMG through the wild card. This year we're having Homebois, and honestly, as much as I want to not be worried about them, they have a tendency to start slow. And sometimes even on the international stage, nerves can actually get to them, which is why we're not exactly known to be an international powerhouse. But that might actually change this time round. SRG is a team that continues to break boundaries here in MY. It is the perfect coalition of Filipino and Malaysian blood aligned with each other. And I'm not saying this because I'm like, oh, Malaysian players plus Filipinos equals the ultimate player. I'm just saying that this team is on the cusp of something great. And that's honestly what I'm excited for their appearance in M6, and well, I'm hoping that it's going to be them still together in M6, but even for MSC, I don't think they've reached their peak yet. The Malaysian playstyle is very simple. Generally, for teams, we have an identity. We play around that identity as much as we can. It has evolved from time to time, and Homebois used to play around the early game until the patch said no, and now they have to figure something else out. But I think that SRG is more inclined with the rest of the world, and most importantly, their playstyle is very much around their chemistry between each other, amongst their mid-trio, right? Having strong Filipino individuals in the side lanes, and then after that, just push the map through the center. It's beauty. It's great. And the chemistry there, when Coach Arcadia said he wanted to make another Echo, he's almost there. He's almost there.
Well, I think now that you mentioned it, it hasn't dawned on me up until now that maybe Malaysia has the most identity-centric playstyle, right? And it's not just all in all where we're very macro, all in all we just like team fights. No, now that you mention it, maybe it is down to the team. Maybe it is down to what core they have as a 5-man, and then that's what shines through. Let's talk about SRG, Selangor Red Giants. They are on the forefront of, again, breaking ground as a Malaysian team on the international stage after an amazing season 13. You mentioned their star players. You mentioned how their strong trio mid and then their Filipinos all-star side laners are, making it happen for them. But I don't think this has been talked about as much, or at least I haven't really heard much about it, right? What are their possible weaknesses, man? Like, what is it going to take to break SRG?
What is it going to take to break SRG?
Because they've never lost a single series, man. It's been how many months?
It's true. They're on a really big hot streak, and I'm not gonna lie. Teams who want to kind of like defeat SRG have to do a couple of things. Number one, there's many ways to actually attack SRG. The problem is that what SRG has that a lot of teams will, I would hope that they would have the backup staff to actually to keep them up to date with the strategies, and more so that if one lane is going to get targeted, the other lanes have their own little like synergies between each other. Like for an example, if your gold laner isn't going to be as strong, but then you get Arlet and Fredrin as well, then you have like natural synergy between your jungler as well as your roamer. Things like that, right? It's a give and take in the draft, and I think that Coach Arcadia is honestly the difference maker in these types of situations, because the previous SRG will keep slamming their head against the wall in the drafting phase alone, and then once they're in the game, it's so much harder for them because of the tools that they have. I think that SRG, their biggest, if you want to attack them, you start looking towards maybe gold or even EXP. Atypical way is to isolate those targets, trying to get ahead in those lanes and use it to push into the enemy jungle. I think you need to limit down on Sakai's, make sure that he doesn't get high mobility heroes. If he's on a Fredrin, that's totally fine, that's atypical, but if you give him something like Nolan and he's actually, making things happen across the map while the other 4 are pushing towards the side, there's a lot of different strategies, none of which that I can confidently say will work just yet, but it's a combination of targeting a player and the draft.
Ooh, the latter means attacking Coach Arcadia, maybe presenting something that he's not ready for, that's definitely one way to give SRG a run for the money. But Gideon, let's say you're facing off against SRG, you can only really attack one. Like, as a team, we gotta sweep the leg under one main player, and we'll consider that player their all-star player, despite all five doing one hell of a job. Who might it be? Who is SRG's number one?
I'm gonna be honest with you, that's a really tough question to answer, right? Because as much as I want to believe that, you know, the Filipino side lanes are doing their job like above and beyond every single time, and we've seen the majority of their games actually won through their gold lane, actually through innocent majority of that time, playing maybe Roger in the previous patch, now, well, during the SBS, some other interesting picks. But I think that it would be Stormy, because I think Stormy is the glue that kind of keeps the team in place, but more importantly so, he's a very adaptable player. He's super young, right? So everything, SRG has a very fresh mentality to approaching what the meta should be, or at the very least how they approach fights. So a lot of the time, if Stormy is having a good time in the mid lane, it guarantees that one of the side lanes will be okay, right? He is, I wouldn't want to say the foundation, because he's also quite the playmaker. To be fair, SRG, a lot of them are playmakers, and I think that's the beauty of it, right? It's very similar to Echo, where you get a bunch of players who are like, I want to make something cool happen, and we're going to do it perfectly. And I think in SRG is just a very young version of that.
Let's move the spotlight over to Malaysia's other representative, part of the wild card. Let's talk about Homebois. They came up short against SRG in the grand finals, but still definitely put on quite a show. I am excited definitely to see Udil in Riyadh. I'd love to see him run his mouth, because again, I've talked to several people and they're thinking, hey, just hand it over to Homebois. Likely they're going to be making it through the wild card. Number one, do you agree with that? And what is their main edge against the other 7 teams down there in the wild card?
I think that Homeboys, their major advantage, or what used to be their major advantage, was how aggressive that they would play in the early game, right? Unlike regions like Cambodia, where it almost feels like they will force, even if it's not in their favor, like, I'm gonna outplay you and that's the bottom line, right? I think that Homeboys take a more controlled approach to the situation, where it's like, okay, we start scouting for information, we posture ourselves to follow up if any opportunities present itself, and then we attack, right? And then once we attack, the momentum starts to build up and we can snowball out of control, because the enemy team is going to be thinking about, okay, what's the next thing that I need to do? Let's go back to basics. Let's go back to farming. While Homeboys is thinking, hey, they're going to start farming again. Let's attack them once more. Let's use the momentum that we've generated to kind of condition our opponents to play defensively, so that they don't think too far ahead. Because if they think further ahead, we've seen teams approach Homeboys of, oh, they're pushing their momentum on the top side of the map, let's start scraping some gold down on the bottom side. So even with the momentum, the gold lead never really changes. And I think, you know, the patch really screwed them over. I'm not gonna lie, man. I'm not gonna lie. I want to agree with the statement that Homeboys can make it out of wildcards, like 2-0s all the way. It wasn't even close, but at the same time, Homeboys' inconsistent performances, and as well as what may happen before the wildcards, that patch could change so much. And I think, you know, with Homeboys being very, very much early game centric, being very much, hey, we need to make something happen at the precise time, which is what the meta is right now. Play through the mid game, get your mid laner to scale up, including your gold laner as well as the secondary win condition, vice versa. And I think usually they would do okay, and that's all up to Udil. So I think right now Homeboys are kind of like trying to figure out what suits them best in this current meta, and then changing it again if the patch is too big.
Oh wow! As of recording, that means come the new patch, Homeboys has less than 2 weeks to figure things out. But something tells me, I want to look at it from the bright side, that maybe the fact that they know that they've fallen in the mid-season, and then they've also found out that they have this weakness, means that they can address it, right? Like, this is definitely still a sentiment that I could get behind. Like, a good half of me, and there's a very loud voice in my head saying, you know, it's Homeboys. But then again, there are still some dark horses definitely in the wild card, which now brings me to a tough question. We're about to just wrap up MLBB Around the World here, Gideon. I'm going to put you on the spot. Realistically, and just from your heart of hearts, ideally, where do you think Selangor Red Giants and Homeboys will end up in MSC 2024 as a whole? Like, give me a number. Like, do you think they can break it out in top 4? Is Homeboys making it out of the wild card? Like, paint me a picture.
Do I really want to gas up the boys? It's a tough one because let me tell you, Malaysia is not exactly the most consistent on the international stage, and I think, you know, for me personally, as a standard, as a, like, you know, benchmark of what I'm hoping for these boys, that even if they pass after this point, I will be extremely proud of them. If we make it out of groups, that's the biggest problem we've been having. We haven't even had a chance to really play the tournament because we don't even make it out.
We, as a collective, like just both SRG and Homeboys.
Yes! It doesn't matter who. We need one of those teams to get out of groups. That's the most important part. Then we can start thinking about future goals. I think even for a lot of Malaysian fans, we're thinking of the same thing, right? We want to do well internationally, but to say that we're number 1 is really difficult. I do think that this upcoming MSC is going to be who adapts faster to the patch, and then it's going to be a game of rock, paper, scissors. It's if you're unlucky and the bracket's not in your favor, you face off a team that just happened to be scissors when your strat is paper, it's not going to be a good time. Yeah.
All right, so that's the tough love answer, right? Like, we haven't really been breaking out in the past few years. First things first, make it out of groups. So maybe in a couple of days from when this is recorded, we'll put up the draw results here, wherever SRG ends up in, wherever that wildcard slot ends up into. Bonus question, ding, 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 ding. I'm wondering, since you know, laid down the law, you drew the line in the sand and say, you know what, SRG, Homeboys, make it through groups first. Who might be the biggest hurdles? Who are the biggest rivals for MPL MY teams going into MSC? Like, who might be standing in the way of making that dream happen? Like, who is it? Who, besides Indo, besides PH, who do you think?
I think, besides Indo, besides PH.
Yeah, because already confirmed they are headlining each of the groups A, B, C, D, right? Like, that's how the draws happen. So that aside, for sure, SRG and Homeboys, or maybe even both of them in the same group, they will be facing off at least against one of these teams. EVOS Glory, Fnatic Onyx, Liquid PH, and Falcons AP Bird. Like, it's gonna happen, but who else?
That's a tough question, Leo. Personally, I think I've been foreshadowing this particular region for a while, actually. In this video alone, I mentioned that Cambodia is somebody to keep an eye on. In particular, I know Myanmar is also good, but Cambodia, with See You Soon, that whole region, right? I can't even just say the team. That whole region is so micro-focused. If you make a mistake microly, they will punish you for it, and they will go above and beyond to get under your skin. And I think, you know, with that in mind, every team is going to be like, man, it's really hectic to play against them, because you play one game, it felt like it was an easy sweep. The second game, you talk to the laners and they're like, man, it was pretty annoying to play against them, right? They start figuring out your patterns, your habits as quick as possible, and then that's when they get underneath your fingernails.
And I think that's a story behind what happened in the M5 lower bracket. They failed to do that against Deus Vult. And I guess that's where this, you know, budding next generation of stronger regions are coming through. I could have sworn you were going to say Team Spirit or Brute Force. Speaking of Brute Force, who in the wild card might you think stand in Homeboy's way? Because you already mentioned See You Soon, so that's in the main lineup. But what about the wild card? Who might Homeboys face off against in that final matchup to qualify for the group stage?
I think it's good. Honestly, you already answered the question. I think it's going to be Team Brute Force, right? Ooh. I think that region is okay. It's not just Team Brute Force. It's S2G,
S2G, the
right?
Turkish, yeah.
The Turkish representatives as well coming to wildcards. I think they're also really, really scary to play against, because these are some of the regions where it's like, wow, it's kind of like NA, where all the top players kind of band together to create their teams and play against each other. Like, if they go into a ranked game, it's basically a scrim all over again, because only the top players are going to be matching against each other. Yep. Their ranked games are basically their scrims, because all of these top tier players, whether it be people who've already qualified for MSC or people who are looking to qualify for MSC are all in that same pool. So a scrim could just be going on to your ranked game with 5-man, and you're probably gonna meet the other 5-man pretty consistently if you're at the top of the leaderboards. And I think that's the scary part, right? They adopt a lot of each other's strategies. You can see that there's a lot of similarities between the teams, and then when the qualifier actually happens, it's whoever has the more polished and more so execution of the game, right? They have really great ideas, both of these teams, very innovative in a matter of fact, but as you can tell, the tier 1s have more polish, so the execution is just cleaner overall in comparison to technically the second placers who are just a little bit more messy, right? So I think when I'm looking at Brute Force, when I'm looking at like S2G, a lot of things remind me of their counterparts, right? Marbon, for an example, EXP laner for Brute Force, and as well as S2G Esports' mid laners, Begin. We're thinking of Kid Bomba when we're thinking of like, you know, Team Spirit, that region. He's big personality, but also that the way he plays, exactly, right? he's got a flow to it. Marbon adopts a lot of that, and he's still looking for his own identity, which right now, I personally think that the patch doesn't benefit him. But it could be better later down the road. S2G, right? Turkish squad. Begin, mid laner, I've heard real nasty on the Lilia as well. So like it's like almost, I don't want to say that they're carbon copies of each other, but you can see where a lot of their ideas are coming from their bigger brothers technically, or whoever is like higher in stars in the rank ladder.
I understand the dynamics going on within MPL MY now a little better. I understand where SRG and Homebois stand more specifically, and I hope y'all understand too, watching at home. What do you think SRG and Homebois will do come MSC 2024? How far will they make it, and will they make it out of groups? Thanks again to Gideon for helping us out. Check out MLBB Around the World. Taking a trip down to MPL MY. Right now might be the best time to upgrade your gear. Check out Cool for School. Get your hands on back-to-school bundles with discounts and freebies featuring phones, laptops, and more for work and play. I'd go for the ROG Phone 6, 7, and 8, each bundle with GAN chargers, gaming earbuds, and Aero Active coolers. And as a bonus, I suggest you check out the ROG Ally Z1, which comes with a 2,000 peso discount, ROG Cetra True Wireless Buds, 2,000 pesos Steam credits, and 3 months worth of Xbox Game Pass. That's Cool for School, running until August 15, 2024. Check out the Asus ROG official Facebook page for more details.
Begin. Okay.
There you go.
Beacon. Okay.
Who's Beacon?
From S2G Esports
Begin.
laner.
Yeah.
Begin.
It might be Turkish. Begin.
I'm messing with you. You already went with the R low, and I couldn't get that out of my head. I have to get one back somehow.
Wait, who says Martis? No. I have a defense to that now, alright? Because Martis. There's someone, like a pro player, like legit a pro player, that calls it Martis. So now, you can't give me because this player calls it Martis. Who are you? Martis.
All right.
Someone calls it Martis, I swear to God. Okay.
That's fair. All right.
No. Or Wreath. Okay, let's go.